Here, Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. There's a group of people who earn more than $50 an hour who have not earned a cent of it tonight. And that is the National Party caucus members who have stood up and spoken on this bill without reading a word of it, I think, especially without reading any of the amendments proposed in the supplementary order papers put up by my colleague David Parker. Because if they took time to read them, they would realise that every single one of the arguments they have put up against this legislation is dealt with in the supplementary order paper proposed by David Parker. Let's go through them. First of all, we had Parmjeet Palmer saying, well, what if someone is working for multiple contractors, multiple principals? Which one of them is responsible for paying the minimum wage? Oh gosh, it's so damn difficult we can't do it. It's simple. New section 6A, subsection 2, subsection 1 does not apply to a specified contractor who is providing a service to more than one principal at the same time. End of story. That problem dealt with right there in that proposal in David Parker's supplementary order paper. Then we had this other argument about, oh, well, you know, it could take the person longer than they thought it was going to take them to do the job, so you're going to have to pay them more because they're going to do more hours, or the person might be old and they might not get around as quickly as a young person, and so, you know, it would be terrible to have to pay them more. Well, let's have a look at new section 11AC. Specified contractor may not recover minimum remuneration for time that exceeds agreed reasonable time to provide service. So it's pretty simple. When you enter into the contract, you agree how long it should take to do the job. You agree at a rate that would make that job pay the minimum wage. And if the person takes longer than the agreed reasonable time, that's fine. 11AC says they can't recover any more money because they went over the agreed time. The only requirement is that the agreed time is reasonable and that the rate of pay is reasonable. Let's face the facts. The National Party's opposition to this legislation is purely ideological. It is not based on any practical concerns at all, because every single one of the things that they have raised in this debate tonight is dealt with. They have not raised one single legitimate concern. Or at least if they have raised a legitimate concern, David Parker has dealt with it. It's all here in the legislation and it's all here in the SOP. The fact is the National Party don't want workers to earn a reasonable wage. They want some employers to be able to circumvent our employment law and pay people less than the minimum wage. That is why the National Party is opposing this legislation. They do not want working people to get a fair share of the improvements in productivity. They only want their supporters, the owners of capital, to get all of that share, and they want people to work harder and harder and harder for less and less pay. That's why people can't afford to live in houses under the National Party, because they can't earn enough to pay the prices that the National Party allows our housing market to get to. That's what's going on in this country. And that's why Chris Hipkins is absolutely right when he says that if you ignore these problems for too long, if you push people down, then you get Brexit, you get Trump, you get all of those things that we're seeing around the world. And this is exactly where the National Party is leading us, because they can't argue this one on the facts. They can't argue this one on the detail of the bill. They've come down here and demonstrated that they haven't been paying attention, that they haven't been earning their money and reading this bill properly and properly considering the amendments proposed by David Parker. They are opposing this purely on ideological grounds, because they want working people to earn the barest minimum, if not less, and so that the people that they stand for, the few at the top, the speculators, they can do well out of a growing economy and everybody else can get stuffed. That's why the National Party is opposing this bill.
Chair.